Part 1 definitions: Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, a federal civil rights law that prohibits discrimination against people with disability in all areas of public life, such as jobs, schools, and transportation. Autism spectrum disorder, otherwise known as ASD, a type of developmental disorder that is diagnosed in early childhood and continues throughout adulthood, characterized by language and social development delay and repetitive behaviors. Baker Act, the Florida Mental Health Act of 1971, which provides people who have a mental illness or who may harm or neglect themselves or others with an emergency service and temporary detention for psychiatric evaluation and voluntary or involuntary short-term inpatient treatment. Criminal gang, a formal or informal ongoing organization, association, or group that has as one of its primary activities the commission of criminal or delinquent acts, and that consists of 3 or more persons who have a common name or common identifying signs, colors, or symbols, including but not limited to terrorist organizations and hate groups. Crisis, a time of intense difficulty, trouble, or danger, especially when the affected person feels unprepared and pressured to take action or to make a decision. It is also defined by the person's perception of and response to the event. Diffusion or delusion, a false belief that is firmly held despite obvious proof or evidence to the contrary. The delusion is this person's reality. Detoxification, often the first step in a drug treatment program. It is the process of allowing the body to rid itself of a drug while managing the symptoms of withdrawal. Developmental disability, a disorder or syndrome that is attributable to cerebral palsy, autism, spina bifida, Down syndrome, Phelan-McDermid syndrome, Prader-Willi syndrome, or an intellectual disability. It manifests before the age of 18. Constitutes a substantial handicap and continues indefinitely. Hallucination, a sensory experience in which a person can see, hear, smell, taste, or feel something that is not there. Hearing impairment, any degree of hearing loss classified into 2 categories, hard of hearing and deafness. Homeless, defined by Florida statutes as a person who does not have a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. Intellectual disability, types of developmental disabilities that are lifelong conditions, characterized by slow intellectual development. Marchman Act, the Hal S. Marchman Alcohol and Other Drug Services Act of 1993, which provides people in need of substance abuse services access to emergency services and temporary protected custody on either a voluntary or involuntary basis. Mental illness, defined by Florida statutes as an impairment of the mental or emotional processes that exercise the conscious control of one's actions, which may hinder a person's ability to perceive or understand reality. Overdose, the accidental or intentional use of a dangerously large amount of a substance that can lead to death. Physical or mobility impairment, a functional limitation that affects one or more of a person's limbs, where people may have limited use of one or more of their extremities for walking, grasping, or lifting objects. Self-stimulating behavior, also called stimming, coping skills engaged in by autistic people that allow an overstimulated person to calm down in a stressful environment or provide an understimulated person with sensory stimulation. Example, body rocking, hand flapping. Sign language interpreter, a certified person who can both receive and express information and interpret it effectively, accurately, and impartially. Sovereign citizen, a subculture of society that holds anti-government beliefs and does not recognize federal, state, or local laws, regulations, or policies. Speech impairment, a physiological condition that causes a person to have difficulty in producing sound or understandable language. Substance abuse, also referred to as substance misuse, the inappropriate use of a substance that negatively affects the mind and body, adversely impacting a person's social or occupational life and psychological or physical health. Substance use, the intake of a substance that can lead to substance abuse, which can be a legal therapeutic prescription or an illegal recreational use. Suicide by cop, a scenario where people attempt to end their lives by intentionally provoking officers to use deadly force. Traumatic brain injury, otherwise known as TBI, a structural injury that often occurs as the result of sudden injury that causes damage to the brain, frequently resulting from combat. Vision impairment, a loss or partial loss of sight that cannot be corrected by usual means, such as glasses. A voluntary examination, the decision by a person to willingly seek a psychiatric evaluation for symptoms that may be due to mental illness. A vulnerable adult, a person 18 or older whose ability to perform the activities of daily living or to provide for their own care or protection is impaired, often due to a mental, emotional, sensory, long-term physical, or developmental disability, brain damage, or the infirmities of aging. Withdrawal, the physical and mental symptoms that occur after chronic use of a drug is reduced or stopped.